Welcome back to a new video. So in this video, I have two workouts. First one from the blocks, second one from the floor. I'll talk about the differences or the focuses as I get through the video. But before I talk about the actual workout themselves, I brought back the OG high blocks that I used for a very long time out here in the shed, and they started to get beat up, and I was just didn't really have a lot of space in the shed. I still really don't, but I decided to bring them back because I want to use them for jerks and stack them all up to do just essentially jerks from the blocks, so I can do more volume and I don't have to re-rack, do all of that annoying stuff. Because that was a big reason I took them out, was the fact that they were getting broken and I wasn't doing a lot of jerks from the blocks with them, so I wasn't utilizing having all of the blocks in here. But especially now that I live alone at the house, I don't have to create a ton of space out here. Because that was something else that also was nice, is when I took them out, there was more space. That when Justin, if he was ever training with me and he wanted to sit somewhere, there was actually space to sit and he wasn't just standing among all the blocks. Now it doesn't really matter. I have a spot to sit still, and I just don't really need to utilize or create open space in the shed, so I can have them back in. Plus, I really just need to man up and do more jerks from the blocks because it will benefit me tremendously in my lifting. I won't have to try to re-rack everything, and I'll be able to do more volume and be able to attempt safely heavier and heavier weights, even if it's in the front or from behind. No matter what position, I'll just be able to go yeet, skeet, wheat, and throw stuff above my head and not be worried if it's going to tip over or whatever, fall, or having to take all the weights off and re-rack them, which isn't that difficult to do. Like, if you have to do it in your training, it's not the end of the world, but it is certainly a convenience that I am very lucky to have. From way back when I was trying to run a gym with my friend, we had these blocks there, so they're quite old at this point. I think about 6, 7 years old, maybe around that, maybe a little bit less, but I've certainly beat the high blocks to death, so that's why they have the little repair at the top, because they were getting cracked and whatnot. And snatches don't really do that to it, but the doing cleans and jerks, particularly from the low blocks, or dropping them onto the low blocks, is what kind of beats them up really poorly. But I had an interesting snatch session, so I wanted to do powers from the blocks. I wasn't feeling very good on this day, or at least very motivated to go crazy, so I decided to warm up with some contact muscle snatches, and I was very intentional to do contact one and not no contact, just to make it more difficult, because the contact always feels weird for me on the muscle snatches, and I figured that it would be a good limiter because I knew I wouldn't want to go super heavy with them. And so I got up to 70, and as you saw, as I was doing the muscle snatches, I did power snatches in kind of like a complex with them. And I actually kind of really like that. I did it not the next session, but the session after, where I did some muscle snatches plus power snatches from the floor. So very similar to this day. And I felt like it just put me in a good groove or a good movement pattern. So I definitely think I want to keep adding the contact muscle snatches in. Because if I just stop at 70, then they don't really feel too wonky or bad. But a lot of the reasons they feel bad or feel weird is that I'm just smashing it too hard off my hips. So it'll actually probably be good for technique, just to practice the pull and trying to pull it smoothly from that contact point, and not just trying to ooga booga it off my hips and trying to essentially just press it up and trying to, I don't know, not trying to do a correct muscle snatch, I suppose. But it's at least good for a warm up, and with 70, it's not too heavy, and it feels good to do at least these two sessions. With the second exercise I did block power snatch, or block power cleans, I should say, with straps to make it more difficult, and got up to 110 for the hold there. I did power jerks too, which I don't typically do, but I was doing it mostly just to really force the bar behind my head and just kind of feel the mobility of it. They definitely feel tough, but I was glad I did the power jerks for that reason, for the mobility aspect of it. I ended the session with some snatch pulls. I left it just one continuous clip, because one of the common things I like to do is just essentially do clusters, I guess, with them, and not really rest a ton. That's the big advantage I have with just having really natural pulling mechanics and just a really strong posterior chain, is that I just don't need a ton of rest. In theory, like, I could rest longer and maybe I would pull faster and whatnot, but I kind of just like doing them with short rest in between. They don't really feel like they're that much more difficult, and depending on the weight that I'm doing, it technically isn't difficult because the weights are so light, and I don't really feel like I'm losing positions or slowing down. But really, just the focus on these was just trying to move them close to my body and trying to kind of make sure the contact point felt natural and I was just pulling it up. Not necessarily trying to get like a super high pull, but just trying to get a natural finish after that contact point. So nothing really radical with them. I just want to do some lighter snatch pulls and kind of keep up with the theme of this session of just doing some lighter stuff, which honestly I need more sessions like that and to be more willing to do that, because it's not so much that I never do a light session or I never do stuff that isn't heavy, but a lot of times I just don't want to, and then I kind of force the issue when I know I shouldn't, because it's not so much like, oh, I can't lift heavy on this day, I have to do this or whatever, but if like I'm not feeling it, then I shouldn't push the issue. So like on a normal day with that power snatch at 100, I just would have kept going up until I would have missed, and there's not really a benefit to that. When I felt 100, it was difficult, technique broke down, just move on to the next exercise. And I need to do more sessions like that, whether it is at 100 or 105 or whatever the exercise is and the weight is, to just stop when the technique breaks down, because I can do other exercises, because I can train the next day and just do everything more effective. I don't need to keep going up until everything breaks down. Now the catch-22 with that is that sometimes when I miss, it's purely technique and the weights don't feel bad, and it's not even, it's technical breakdown, of course, but it isn't so much like, oh my gosh, I can't correct this, I can't do it. It's like, oh, I was just early, I just need to fix it. So it is kind of that catch-22 to find that balancing point of where the fatigue is limiting it and not just my crappy technique, which is, a battle forever. But speaking of technique work, I did no-foot snatches on this day, and I haven't done no-foot snatches in a little bit, and they felt really good. I again wasn't feeling super snappy or super crazy good or anything, but the no-foot snatches were feeling really smooth, I guess is a good way to describe it. Like they felt they were in a good groove, even though like that one was a little bit forward. As I was moving up, it just felt like I was just putting it into a really good position, trying to get it back behind my head a little bit further, just trying to make sure that I was putting my arms in a good, proper overhead position as I was catching it. I suppose that's one really nice thing with no-foot snatches, is that you can really feel if you're out in front of it, if you're really early or whatever, and try to make those corrections. Here I definitely extended early, and it's one of those things like when you get nervous about a weight, it feels a little bit heavier. The tendency is to kind of rush to try to get under it. But I made a really nice correction here, and I actually almost overpulled it. But I was really happy with the position I caught at the bottom. I know it was kind of bouncing around, but it was almost a little behind me. But the lockout felt so, like my arms and everything just felt like such a perfect position as far as being locked out and whatnot, and made me really confident to go up to 110. And essentially my thought when I was going to 110 was like literally just do what you did with 105, because I overpulled it. So the idea is like I'm just going to pull the same way, or at least put the same amount of effort in, and it's just going to go into the right position, and it really did. So I was really excited to actually get to that 110. I really thought I was going to get stuck around 100, 105, but I was able just to continue to make improvements. And I don't know, no-foot snatches, they're definitely moving and grooving. I decided today to do just some cleans. I originally was thinking of doing some clean doubles like I have been, but just my legs were just not feeling it. I wasn't feeling super strong. Quad tendons were a little bit irritated, so I decided just to push up to this 150 for a single, and then to do some clean pulls here. So actually 2 straight day of pulls, and pulls that were relatively light. I guess 180 might not be very light for some people, or even light relative to what I can clean, but as far as my pulling strength, it definitely felt pretty light. I was trying really hard to maintain positions that I would have in the clean, so just to have lower hips, which definitely made it feel more difficult, and something that I just need to do more of. And really, like, the way that I'm built and the way that I recover from pulling movements, I could really almost do pulls like this every single day and be fine and get lots of volume and practice in at these weights, even if lighter. I would say kind of right now, like for snatch pulls, the limit if I'm doing like a quote-unquote light session would be like 130, and then these clean pulls, honestly, probably around this 180. If I went heavier, obviously I can pull it, but it would turn more into a deadlift and kind of get too slow. It's kind of that tricky thing. You obviously want to push weights up heavier, but you want to push to the point where you can maintain technique. If you are doing, in this case, I'm doing some clean pulls and not just clean deadlifts or regular deadlifts. So that's the catch-22 again with this, to bring that term up again for this exercise, is I love pulling heavy, but I also like getting better at weightlifting, so I have to do a little bit of both. I don't necessarily think that me doing a heavy deadlift or something is going to be the end of the world, but I do need to add more of these sessions like this where I'm really trying to focus on maintaining positions that I'm going to have in the clean and really just trying to move fast. And honestly, as far as like improving my deadlift, it's one of the things that probably has improved my deadlift from weightlifting is doing lighter and faster pulls along with back squats. It's really the kind of the two main things that I think has driven up my deadlift, because I haven't really done any specific accessory work for it over the years, and it's consistently increased throughout my time doing weightlifting. So I really think it's, you know, the snatch pulls, the clean pulls, doing them lighter and trying to pull faster and just try to use my legs more in the pull, but then just getting stronger legs and just a whole organism as a whole with back squats. Really, back squats probably have driven it more than anything, but I honestly think the pulls, just having them more, doing them more frequently and really focusing on my leg drive has helped as well. But I don't know. It's one of those tricky things. It's like I just kind of have to theorize, because there's not like a direct correlation, because I just kind of randomly deadlift. I guess if I really went in depth and looked back at like how I planned everything out, or how I, you know, trained and where I did deadlifts and stuff, and I don't know. It's there's not a scientific way that I do deadlifts now, because I kind of have enough of a deadlift, so I just do it when I feel like, and when it kind of makes sense in a week. That's kind of like the only time that I think about a deadlift is like, what do I want to do the next day? Because I know if I do a really heavy deadlift, I'm probably not gonna want to lift very hard the next day. So it's one thing I know, if like, oh, I'm gonna not really train tomorrow, like I'll just go crazy on a deadlift, because, you know, there's not a direct consequence, and usually after a day, then I'm pretty much back to normal with that, unless I go to 305 kilos and almost lose my soul to the pull. But thankfully, most of the time I don't do anything too crazy like that. But that's going to be it for this video. If you made it to this point or any point of the video, I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. I hope you all have a great day. Peace.